4:30 on Thursday, March 4th, 2021, and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Pinehurst Board of Adjustment notice properly given. This meeting is being held electronically, in part, using the virtual meeting platform Zoom in an effort to comply with Governor Cooper's executive order. I'm going to at this time notate a quorum and designate the voting members for this meeting. We have with us tonight as permanent members Cindy Burnett, David Alzamora, Jack Farrell, and myself, Julia Latham. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jack, as this is his first time joining us as a permanent member. So thank you very much, Jack, for your service to this board.
Thank you.
I'd also like to name at this time Philip Shoemaker as an alternate. May I have a motion to have Philip join our board for this evening?
I move to have Philip Shoemaker join the meeting tonight as a voting member.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion made and carried. Philip is going to join us as the alternate fifth member for our board tonight. Thank you very much, Philip, for sitting in at the table this evening. A little housekeeping. This procedure is being videotaped, so we ask that everyone speak into their microphones so that everything can be recorded as well. I'm going to be proceeding a little more slowly and deliberately, especially through certain areas, to make sure that everyone's due process rights are being met on this platform. So your patience, please, as we work our way through those elements. And lastly, for the folks who are attending remotely, please no usage of the Zoom chat function, since we need to maintain transparency and comply with open records laws. At this time then, I'm going to look at the business for today, approving the minutes for the Board of Adjustment meeting of Thursday, February 4th, 2021. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Okay, hearing no corrections or additions, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as recorded?
I move to approve the minutes as recorded for
Okay,
February 4th.
motion made by Cindy. Do we have a second?
Jack seconded.
Was that Jack? Thank you very much. So motion made by Cindy, seconded by Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thanks everyone. Motions are approved as recorded. So at this time, we'll go ahead and move on to public hearing number 1. This is for an application for a variance for property at 70 Maple Road. Can I have a motion to recess from our regular meeting and enter into public hearing number 1?
I make a motion to recess from our regular hearing and move into public hearing number 1.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry?
Second.
Okay, so motion made by David, I think, and seconded by Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, hearing no opposition, we are going to go ahead and enter into public hearing number 1. Because of our format, I'm going to be swearing in the witnesses one at a time. That way it's just easier than trying to do everyone at once when I'm remotely. So at this time, I'm also going to ask if there's any member of this board who needs to recuse themselves due to ex parte communications, conflicts of interest, financial interest in the outcome of this variance application, or having already made up their mind on the matter. Okay, hearing no need for a recusal, I'm going to remind the folks on the board here today that our decision needs to be made on competent material and substantial evidence that is a part of our record. And then also, I'm sure that everyone had a chance to review the email that Alex sent out earlier today. Thank you very much, Alex. for refreshing all of our recollection on the various grounds and considerations that go into approval of a variance application. So at this time, I'm going to be asking Peter Hughes, who's going to be representing the village, to be sworn in. Peter, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony and evidence that you're presenting to this board today is truthful?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to ask you, Peter, to read the request into the record and to give us any backstory, any information that the village would like to present on this application.
Julia, this is Jack Farrell. May I interrupt for 1 second?
Of course.
Just as a matter of disclosure, I did visit the property last Tuesday at approximately 11 a.m. There was no one present at the site. I spent most of my time reviewing the front facade, which apparently is the issue here. I also wanted to disclose that I see that one of the pieces of evidence comes from the Tufts archives. You should know I have volunteered in the Tufts archives for approximately 11 years, and I'm extremely familiar with all the photographs, their characteristics, and the John Hammer catalog, having personally cataloged over the 80,000 of the records. So I wanted to make sure that disclosure was there.
Great, thank you. Well, then I will also, in that spirit, disclose that I also visited the property. I also went on Tuesday. So I didn't see you there, Jack, but I was there, and I also confined my inspection to the front of the building.
I visited the property this morning.
Same here, visited today and confined to the front of the property.
Okay, thanks very much. And Mr. Hughes, I'm going to let you go ahead then and present the village's information.
Thank you. Lori, can you make sure that my presentation, there you go. Thank you so much. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony for a variance request for section 9.2A, tables of dimensional requirements for properties addressed at 70 Maple Road, further identified by Moore County PID number 000-18218. This property is located within the R10 zoning district and located in the Historic Preservation Overlay District. Specifically, the applicant and owner, Jason Tanner, is requesting a variance from 30-foot minimum front yard setback. This is a photo of 70 Maple Road taken from the street by staff. This is the aerial map locating the property at the convergence of Community and Maple Road. They're located in red. This is the public hearing notification. In total, 9 properties were notified for today's public hearing. The rear property line of the Apologies for that. The property line of the subject property is adjacent to Spur Road. This is the aerial combination of the notified properties. In green in the hash there is 70 Maple Road, and the grayed out area is 70 Maple Road notified adjacent properties. The standards reviewed for today's hearing is unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of this ordinance. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, and the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of this ordinance. Background, the property is lot 1604 on the plan entitled Map of the Land of Leonard Tufts. It was Exhibit B in your exhibit package. The property is approximately 16,000 square feet, which is more than the minimum 10,000 foot square lot requirements for the R10 zoning district. This is Exhibit B, and I've located the property there with the red star. And to the left, I have a pop-out zoom in that you can clearly see that is labeled as 1604 on the plot plan. An existing single-family home is located on site and is approximately 1,500 square feet. According to the 1996 Village of Pinehurst National Historic Landmark Survey, 70 Maple Road was constructed in 1915 and is considered a contributing structure. Tax records indicate that the property was purchased by the current owner, Jason Tanner, in July of 2020. This is the area zoning map. On the right, we have a table from the staff report showing that the majority of properties were constructed between the mid-1910s and the late 1990s. There is a variety of different zonings adjacent to the property. We have R10 is the majority, but we also have multifamily, village, cottage professional, and then outside the notification, we also have village mixed use. This request is before the Board of Adjustment because the applicant is requesting to vary that 30-foot minimum front yard setback. The applicant, based on the submitted survey, is proposing a plus or minus 22.73-foot setback from the front property line in order to accommodate a future front porch expansion. Please note, regardless of today's decision, any changes to the exterior of this property will have to go through the Historic Preservation Commission for approval of any major modifications. This was the submitted site plan for today's hearing for 70 Maple Road. It's Exhibit G in your package. I've zoomed in to pull out and show you that it is 22.73 according to the survey. The existing structure scaled off by staff is plus or minus 4 feet encroaching that 30 foot, so about 26 feet away from the street. If approved, this would permit an approximate 4 foot of additional encroachment. The applicant may be able to provide more specific numbers during their testimony. In addition to the front porch, we also have additional encroachments shown on the survey. The detached garage is actually over the rear lot line by 2.5 feet. The accessory structure is encroaching into the required 10-foot setback by approximately 6 feet, and both those structures are approximately 450 square feet in size. The applicant has submitted existing elevations of the primary structure as part of their exhibit package. That is Exhibit H, showing the front, left, right, and rear elevations of the existing property. They've done that also for the existing accessory structures. On the left, we have the garage, and on the right, we have the shelter located adjacent to the pool. They've submitted an existing floor plan as well to show you the floor plan of the existing home. And they've submitted a historic photo of Idlewild Cottage showing children on the front steps of Idlewild. They've also submitted proposed elevations of primary structures for you to visualize their concept for the expansion of that porch for the justification for the requested variance. They've submitted updated improvement elevations showing the improvements to the accessory structures as well, which is Exhibit M. And they've submitted an additional existing proposed floor plan. That's mislabeled, I apologize. Proposed floor plan is Exhibit N. In today's exhibit list, everything was included on the screen except for the staff report, which was not included in the PowerPoint, the applicant's consent for electronic meeting, application for a variance, applicant's letter to the board, and the dimensional table requirements were not shown in the PowerPoint today. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photo, site plans, and findings of fact. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, are there any questions for Peter on behalf of the board?
I do have some questions to staff, if that's all right. The front page of the department staff report specifies the proposed setback to be 22.73 feet. The exhibit, which is, to my knowledge, the current site plan, shows as I read it, the current porch to be 22.73 feet from the lot line. Is that correct?
I interpret that to be their proposed porch, but that could be misinterpreted on my part. That may be a best question for the applicant and their professional.
This is a site plan which was created on September 13th. I was under the impression that this was the as-built site plan.
I reviewed it as though they're proposing that 22.73. I could be incorrect. Mr. Degree, can you confirm that for me? If this is proposed at 22.73, or is that incorrect?
Yeah, according to the site plan that was done by the surveyor, he's showing the existing porch at 22.73 feet off of the front property line. The
I'm actually going to
22.6.
intervene because we haven't sworn in Mr. Degree yet. If he's going to speak, I'd like to go ahead and swear him in for the record.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Daniel Degree, could you please state your name, your profession, your interest before our board today?
Yes, my name is Daniel Degree. I'm a licensed builder here. I'm the author of the plans as well, and I'm representing the owner who is in California.
Terrific. And if you would please, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to present to this board here today is the truth?
Yes,
Thank you very much. Please go ahead. I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
yes, no problem. So the surveyors, I think, made a mistake in that the existing porch setback is 22.73 feet from the front property line, and the proposed porch is 22.6. But in reality, if you take a look at the architectural drawings that were submitted, the difference between the existing porch and the proposed porch is 16 inches. I think he's in error by 12 inches. I think it should be 21.6.
Well, my question was to the staff as to whether or not the site plan, which appears to be the as-built, specifies 22.73 feet, 22.73 feet from the property line to the edge of the porch. I assuming this to be correct, as this is a certified survey. And so therefore, it's not, the proposed setback is not 22.73 unless it's not going to change.
That is correct. Based on the testimony provided by Dan Degree, there was an error made by staff in the assumption of 22.73 being the requested setback, but it's apparently 22.6 is the requested setback.
Well, the document goes on, the staff report goes on to say that the setback would be reduced by 4 feet plus or minus.
That's,
So the setback would be not 22.73, but somewhere in the neighborhood between 18, a little over 18 feet. Is that correct?
that would be correct at the time, but because this new information and errant staff judgment, the 4 feet information is no longer correct. So that information needs to be updated to reflect the correct record, which I believe is a 12-inch increase or decrease in the setback from the street.
Okay, well, we're going to address that later on because it needs clarification, I would believe. Thank you. The other question I have for staff is that I believe there's a section in the PDO about nonconformance. I think it's 2.3. And I believe that states clearly that there shall be no increase in nonconformance. So that, does this variance apply also to that section of the PDO as well as the setbacks and requirements?
You're correct. There is a section in the PDO 2.3 that talks about nonconformings and how you should not expand beyond the existing nonconformity. That being said, the applicant is requesting an additional encroachment, so they are still varying the requirement. They just have an existing nonconformity that would allow them to maintain that 22.73 setback, but now you would be granting them the ability to increase their nonconformity.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that completely. Can you restate that?
Yes, sir. So in 2.3, there is a nonconformity statement that says they cannot expand the existing nonconformity. That is true. I would not be able to approve this at a staff level if they wanted to go expanding beyond where they currently are. That's why they're before you here today, because through the variance process, they're able to continue that expansion. They could also do the setback. Let's say they were properly set back at 30 feet and they needed it 5 feet. That too would be something that they could request. So this request is just a variance request that would further that encroachment.
So the variance request impacts both the setback requirement in the table of dimensional requirements as well as section 2.3, which calls for no increase in nonconformance. Is that correct?
State the question. I'm sorry.
So this variance request not only requires a revision of variance from the dimensional requirements as specified in the PDO, but also a variance from the requirement that no increase in nonconformance can occur in a structure. Is that correct?
No, sir. If this variance was approved, it would no longer be considered a nonconformity because it would go with the land. Once it's approved, the setback for this property would be what is decided today. So there would be no nonconformity moving forward that front setback. The setback for this property would be 22 point whatever feet is being requested, 22.6, I believe. So there would be no more existing nonconformity on that front setback. The other existing structures would still maintain their nonconforming status.
Thank you.
questions for our staff representative?
Just for clarity, so they're not adding an additional 4 feet.
They are not adding additional 4 feet. I believe they're adding an additional 16 inches in total,
That's correct.
16 inches in total from the existing front porch.
This is basically because they're doing a renovation and the front porch is non-conforming. They need to have a variance in order to do the renovation.
That's correct.
So the variance request is for something less than 4 feet, is that correct?
That is correct. The staff report annotates 4 feet plus or minus, but it turns out that there's a total of 16 inches is being requested today.
That's not evident in the documentation that I have, at least.
I feel like we need an
Updated site plan.
just updated documentation and more clearer information.
We could enumerate that through testimony if the applicants are able to provide that and satisfy your guys' burden of proof.
I understand. So you're saying that that could be a condition when we get to talking about it a little bit further.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hughes at this time? Okay. I have in my notes that I see that Mr. Tanner is with us. Mr. Tanner, do you wish to address the board, or would you like Mr. Degree to continue? How would you like to proceed?
Greetings, everybody. It's good to see everybody. This is my girlfriend, Rebecca. We're both in California. We're glad to be here. I think Dan is going to present the case, and if there's any questions for us, we're very excited. We hope to move to Pinehurst in the next couple of years, and just glad to be going through this process, and really excited to renovate and make this home beautiful again. So we're glad to be here. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what I'll do then is let Mr. Degree present the application. And when he's wrapped up, after the board has spoken with him, I'll swear you in and perhaps Rebecca, and let you all address the board yourselves, if that sounds comfortable to you.
So that sounds great. And I also included a letter. We didn't know that we would be able to be here today because of COVID. So I included a letter that kind of spelled out the way we feel about the property and renovating it. And so that's included for reference. We're glad to speak after as well.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead then and ask Mr. Degree to make his presentation to the board.
Okay. What we're attempting to do with this property, wherever possible, is to remove the poor decisions that were made in previous times prior to anybody having to approve what was done there. So we have investigated the house. We have pulled sections of it apart to reveal what was underneath. And what we have now is a structure that is covered in aluminum siding with aluminum shutters and aluminum boxing, replacement vinyl windows, a host of products that have been used that would not have been approved today. And we plan on tearing all of those products off. Underneath those products are the original products that were used when the house was built 100 years ago, to include cedar shingles and pine trim and wood windows. And we want to replicate that with new products that will match what was there existing. The front porch is problematic in a couple of ways. The homeowner would like very much to be able to sit on the front porch, have it covered, and be part of the community. I think if you've all visited that house, you've understood how many people use that street. It's a pedestrian walkway. And all hours of the day that we've been out there, there have been people jogging, walking, riding bicycles with baby carriages, et cetera, walking dogs. And so their intent was to buy a house in the historic district, be part of the village, and adopt that lifestyle. And in order to do that, we need a front porch that would be functional. And what we've got out there right now is too shallow, and it's not covered, and it needs to be enlarged in order for it to be functional. We also think that architecturally it adds some character to the house that, in my opinion, should have been there from the very beginning. So if you look at the proposed elevation versus what's actually there now, I think it adds to the character of the neighborhood. There are some documents that the homeowner has provided. He's a law enforcement officer, and he was able to get his forensic department to do some studies of an old photograph to try to interpret if in fact the porch may have been deeper at one time, and it appears that it was. We don't know if it had a roof on it at one time. That's not shown in the drawing, but it does look like the porch at one time was considerably deeper than it is now. And so we would like to add just enough to be able to cover that porch and leave enough room for a couple of rockers and to be covered from the weather at the same time.
Would you like to comment on the discussion that Mr. Farrell was having with Mr. Hughes relative to the setback, whether it's the 4 feet or 16 inches, and amend the request that's before us?
Yes, ma'am. Based on the architectural drawings that have been submitted, the difference between the original porch that's there now and the proposed porch is 16 inches. So what we're looking for the variance for the front, the difference being 16 inches. So if 22.73 feet, or 22 foot 9 inches roughly, is what's there now, we would like 21 foot 6, 21.5, and we can make that work. If you look at the site plan, the house is sort of catty corner to the front setback, and really it's just a portion of that porch that's over the setback.
Is there a particular image you'd like staff to bring up?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is there a particular image that you would like staff to bring up on this screen for reference?
Yeah, you can bring up the site plan. That would be great. Is there a way to make it bigger? Yes. Okay, I'm trying to get my bearings. Can you bring the existing condition floor plan up? Okay, so that's the existing porch now. Now bring up the one for the proposed. The difference in depth between those two is 16 inches, not 4 feet. That's what we're looking for.
Does that include the steps?
No.
So the steps would encroach more, but I don't.
Yes, and they do now as well. Proportionately, the difference would be 16 inches, because if we move the porch 16 inches closer to the street than it is now, the steps would have to go with it. Now, aren't I allowed 3 feet for steps in setback anyway?
I believe the site plan, 22.73 is to the edge of the porch, not to the beginning of the steps.
That's correct.
That's the normal site plan protocol, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Should we ask questions or comment, or should we wait for
I was just going
discussion?
to say, Mr. Degree, are you done with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at this time then, any member of the board may bring any questions or comments forward for Mr. Degree.
Well, I seem to be alone.
I can't
Just-
call on you because I can't see you, so you're just going to have to go for it, guys.
Okay, I have a
There
comment,
we go.
question, concern. Relative to Exhibit K, which is the photograph that was submitted, this is a photograph of a printout from the records at the Tufts Archives of a Hemmer photograph, which is in their records. Like you see down below, it says Hemmer 2243. The photograph of this photograph was apparently taken at an angle because, as you can see, the photograph is wider on the bottom than it is on the top, which leads to the perspective that the porch is deeper than it is. That's a perspective issue. The porch appears to be similar, if not exactly the same, as the current porch from this photograph. And if you see between the two children, you'll see the edge of the cedar siding runs under the porch and, or under the deck, under the front door, excuse me. And therefore it is not really the front, as stated in the document states that the front door is now 6 inches above the porch. This photograph shows that exact condition. So the photograph tends to be a little bit misleading when taken at an angle like this. And it's likely that the photograph represents the porch as it is today. Obviously, the railing is completely different. This being showing wrought iron, look like might be wrought iron railing versus the wooden railing, which is currently existing.
Jack, are you done?
Yes,
Okay, I'm going to intervene for a sec and just interject that with Exhibit K, we have a little bit of an evidentiary issue because we don't have anyone before us today who's in the chain of custody regarding this photo to authenticate it. State law requires that any evidence that's admitted before a Board of Adjustment be admitted without objections as a first criteria. And second, any evidence must appear sufficiently trustworthy and admitted under such circumstance that it's reasonable for the decision-making board to rely upon it. So at this time, I need to ask our board, well, I ought to also ask Mr. Degree and Mr. Tanner, because I don't know who discovered the photo, to let us know, we've heard from the Tufts Archives, to let us know a little bit more about where the photo was located and how it came to be a part of your package. And I don't know whether that's Mr. Degree or Mr. Tanner, who I would be speaking to.
Yeah, that would be for Mr. Tanner.
Okay. Mr. Tanner, can I go ahead and swear you in?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please state your name, your address, and your relationship to the property for the record?
So my name is Jason Tanner, Tanner. Do you want my current address in California or Pinehurst?
The address with the property.
70 Maple Road in Pinehurst.
Okay.
And I have a little different interpretation of the photograph, but Rebecca Carver.
One moment. Do you swear that the testimony you give us today and the evidence you presented is the truth?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Go right ahead.
And actually, my girlfriend Rebecca and her mother went to the Tufts Archive and can provide testimony about acquiring that photograph if you'd like to hear it.
I would. So, Rebecca, if you could please give your full name, your relationship to the property, and then I'll swear you in.
My name is Rebecca Carpenter, and I am Jason Tanner's girlfriend. And was there another question I needed to answer?
Your relationship to the property, I think that's your.
Correct.
Okay.
Connection to him, yeah.
He's my partner.
Thank you.
Yes.
And do you swear that the information you provide us today is the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead and explain to us how this photograph came to be a part of the package.
Yes. We were out visiting in June of 2020. We visited the Tough Archives with my mother and Jason's stepmother. And the picture was taken on June 16th, 7, 8, 9, 10, around 10:20 a.m., along with some other photos that the archivist had pulled for us for the property.
And the archives pulled this particular photo for you, why?
Because we were inquiring about the property, we had found out that it was for sale. And so when we went to go investigate the history, she had pulled the file, and in the file was this photo. It was a copy of the photo, not the original photo itself.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask the board, is there anyone on the board who has any concerns or objections to the admittance of this photo?
What is it being admitted for
Oh, I'm sorry?
specifically? What is it being admitted for? Is it being admitted to show the original state of the porch? I'm just a little, as long as we're specific in what it's being admitted for.
I'm sorry, was that David?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tanner, you can answer?
So my interpretation is a little different about the porch. I'm a homicide detective in California. I try to look at it from a forensic take. Unfortunately, there's not enough angles and measurements that we could use photogrammetry. But I look at the evidence from the porch and I see a much deeper porch. Right before the first step is a concrete pad that appears to be possibly the old concrete pad. And if you look to the right of the boy that's standing there, there's one in between the railing. There's much more porch. And then to the right, to the leading edge of the porch, there's a great deal more distance from the edge of the porch to the building or to the house. And then if you look underneath the door frame, it looks like the pad back then, I think pretty close to the original state, goes up just beneath the front door. And now it's about 6 inches beneath, which leads me to believe that the pad, the concrete pad at that time, that was probably original to the house, was much bigger. And so I wish I could have provided exact data about it, but if you look at all these different things and use common sense regarding that porch, it definitely does look much deeper and was a bigger porch back then. We'd like to return it at least to somewhat, some semblance of that so we can enjoy it.
Thank you. So turning back to the board, do I hear any contest regarding this particular exhibit?
With regards to Exhibit K is, or appears to be, a photograph of the front of the subject dwelling taken some time ago. I believe that's a valid issue, and in fact, it can be entered into it as a valid exhibit, as a photograph that represents the front of this subject dwelling sometime in the past. Whether you can deduce or surmise from the photograph dimensions relative to the porch is unclear to me, and that would be a stretch.
When I visited the house this morning and looked at the front porch, it appeared to be the same size as the photo, in
That-
my perspective.
Can we bring up the picture of the house as it is today? I didn't get a chance to go by the property, so I'd like to see that picture again. Because I feel the same about the picture. Looking at the site plan and looking at it, it looks like the line goes up to that right wall in the picture. And then there's about a 2-foot overhang between the wall, and then what's existing extends further.
Are you able to zoom in by chance?
So where do those stairs come up to the building? Do they go up to that existing wall there? If you've been,
Stairs only lead to the porch, is that correct? Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Stairs only lead to the porch, is that correct?
That's correct.
and that porch begins at the, I guess, extension of the house.
I think it would be very helpful to have dimension drawings of the existing porch and the proposed porch. to
Because,
really-
yeah, there, it looks like the porch, I mean, I can't, maybe I'm seeing differently, but if the porch is flush with that wall that's coming out,
No, it comes out ahead of, it's further out than that.
so it comes out about another roughly 3 feet
Yes.
from the house,
Yes.
then,
Before, I'm going to intervene. Before we get ahead of ourselves into looking at the porch and the dimensions itself, is it correct to say that this board is comfortable with having the picture come into the record as a photograph at an earlier point in time taken of this cottage, but not as, I suppose, not as evidence to the size of the porch, but just the fact of the matter that this is indeed a photograph of the subject property?
Correct.
Correct, yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and proceed. Philip, I saw your hand up. Is that,
I just wanted to make a quick comment. If you look at the photograph, the bottom of it, it looks like the concrete on top of the porch actually has a bit of an overhang. And the existing porch now does not. So there has been some sort of alteration to the concrete over the years. But I've seen plenty of porches like this in North Carolina. It's hard to determine based on the photo, but it does appear to be a bit of an overhang there, whereas the steps now are flush against the concrete. So it was altered at some point in history and maybe a piece cut off, but it does appear to have a several-inch overhang on that top piece of concrete.
okay, I'm going to go ahead and allow the photo into the record. We are all, the photo is appropriate for discussion. It is properly part of the record, and we'll go ahead and continue the discussion from there. Thanks all.
I'd like to reference the lot 1604 in Exhibit B. When I look at that outline of the building, it doesn't look like it has a front porch on it at all. And you're wanting to go back to the original design of the building. I'm not sure that,
I believe this is identifying the incorrect lot. The lot in question is actually the one below that star.
Correct. It's the lot next to it, Cindy.
1603,
Yes.
this is very confusing. I think all of this needs to be.
I would actually like to jump in. 1604 was subdivided at some point. This is just the original plat for the lot. I could not find the subdivided lot, so 1604 shown is the property in question.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, so 1604
Okay.
is 70 Maple, and then that corner lot is 50 Maple. It's the pink house, if you guys are familiar with the historic
Which
district.
explains why
It
it's
resides
narrow.
right there.
Okay.
I would like some more information on this. more accurate information, like a dimension drawing of the existing and proposed porches and exactly what the setback would be. That's,
May I talk? The,
I'm sorry, who was that?
Dan Degree?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Okay, the site plan that you were just showing with the red star, can you blow that up a little bit more? Okay, so 1603 is the house we're talking about.
Right.
The star was on the one above it. I don't have my glasses, but I'm pretty sure that says
Right.
1603. And that does show a porch on the front.
yeah,
Well,
but
now I'm thoroughly confused because we heard from Peter that the subject property was actually 1604 prior to subdivision. So at this point, I'm beginning to agree with Cindy that we're in a bit of a muddle as far as the exhibits before us and a dimension drawing of the existing structure and porch and the proposed porches would be helpful. That's my opinion. I don't know where the rest of the board is with this.
I believe that's a fair comment. The drawings that are proposed, the proposed drawings, if they have dimensions on them, I can't decipher them. So I believe that's correct, that more information as to the exact existing conditions, dimension-wise, and the requested variance dimension and the degree of nonconformance that would increase would be very, very helpful.
Understood.
I just don't feel like there's enough information to make a judgment that has to stand up in court.
Unfortunately, the documentation talks about a 4-foot variance request plus or minus rather than 16 inches. There's a significant difference between 4 feet and 16 inches when you talk about a 22-foot current nonconformity or setback.
That's correct. That was a misinterpretation by staff when we sent an email out between the applicant and I confirmed that the setback was 22.73. So I thought that was the proposed, and I measured to what didn't appear to be a porch to get that 4-foot. So that's how that 4-foot, I guess, discrepancy came into play, was a miscommunication, misunderstanding when we confirmed what the proposed setback was. So I thought the porch at 22.73 was the proposed distance. And so I used the scale in the provided survey to scale it out to that plus or minus 4 request. So that's where that confusion comes in, just to be clear.
Sounds like you could have used more accurate drawings as well.
Are these, how accurate are these area zoning maps? I mean, I would look at Exhibit G, which is the site plan, versus the map. Is that an older rendering? It comes into play, I guess, more for the, if that's supposed to be the garage. I just don't know what I'm looking at there.
G, speaking of,
The Exhibit G is the site plan,
yes,
which shows the only encroachment by the garage onto Spur Road is that back corner. Looking at the area zoning map, which I don't know if it's page 7 in our packet.
I believe that comes from the Moore County GIS system.
Okay.
And historically, the lines that it draws automatically on either a satellite or the map tend to be not necessarily reliable. You're
Yeah.
much more
I just
better
wasn't
off
sure
going with an
where that
actual
came from
engineering site
specifically.
plan.
I would agree. I don't know if there's enough detail in what we're looking at. to know, you know, what the difference is between what's existing. I don't think it's clear enough.
In other words, what the real request is.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Would-
And we
it would
also
seem-
discussed briefly the, in Exhibit D, where you, discussion of the hardship. The statement in the first block, I assume this was prepared by the applicant,
Yes,
says the hardship is that they want to return the home to a useful and historically accurate state by returning the front porch to its original size. However, the drawings, the proposed drawings show more than just a porch enlargement. It also shows an overhang increase and a change in the facade in that it has a separate A member, you know, I'll call it an A member, you know what I'm talking about.
yes, sir.
A smaller one over the porch. But there's no evidence that that A member ever appeared or the overhang ever was over the porch.
No, sir.
completely. Correct. Okay, thank you.
So the hardship is that you would not be able to return it to the photo, the image in the photo? Is
I
that?
think the hardship, and I'm speaking for the homeowner, and I may not want to do that, but is to get the depth of porch back to its existing size.
But you really don't have documentation that says exactly what the existing size was.
The original size, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Tanner, would you like to I'll give you the opportunity to weigh in we have the letter from you, but to weigh in what you feel the hardship is here in the application for the variance?
Sure. I think the hardship for us is that this home is 115 years old now or older, and before zoning setbacks, it's a huge lot, probably twice the lot we have here in California. And if it was built today, we could have easily pushed it back and conformed. But today's standards are being imposed on a historic home. And right now, only one person can sit on that porch. And who wants to just sit one at a time on a porch? We want our family there. We bought the home to be a part of the community and not relegated to the backyard or into the house. We're very passionate. We see the horse-drawn carriage go by every night. I want to put a gas lamp up front. We want to make it beautiful. And right now, it's not a beautiful porch. The Annie Oakley house is across the street. My next door neighbor has a beautiful home, both of them Pine Straw Magazine. We want to make it a beautiful home again. And I wish I could just move the house back, but we can't. We'd just like to have a usable porch to make it a beautiful home again. And without this, we're going to have a one-person porch. It's pretty sad right now, to be honest. And I don't think 16 inches is asking too much to accomplish that. I think it's going to reflect better in the neighborhood and on that house. It's already, non-conforming, but I think it would do justice to this home and the community there in the neighborhood.
Any questions for the homeowner, Mr. Tanner, from the board?
There's a nice porch on the side of the house that also overlooks the street. You can see the activity of what's going on the street. Have you considered making that your social porch as opposed to the front one?
No, it's in the driveway, and we're getting rid of that, as a matter of fact, that deck on the side. And that, again, we're in the driveway. We're not in front where the horse carriages go by, and people want to look at our home, and we don't want to be, we'll enjoy the side of the house, sure, or the back of the house, but we want to be part of our community and our neighborhood. That's a real big and important thing. That's why we bought the home there.
Okay, thank you.
I guarantee you, Mr. Tanner, the community enthusiastically supports people that wish to revise and remodel. the cottages within the historic district particularly. The dilemma is, though, that unfortunately, the hardship that you state for this particular property is shared by a great number of the properties in the neighborhood and particularly in the historic district. And so it's not particularly unique to this property.
And I would say, a neighbor of mine, Bart Boudreau, brought up 65 Cherokee Road that had a similar issue with a porch. I understand the planning department burned down at some point. They had one photograph or some photographs of the front. They were allowed to, a variance to return the porch and provided, that the setback was, they were allowed the variance basically to return the porch to a more historically accurate porch. And I would say, if you really study the photo of those kids, as a detective, I mean, I would look at different points on that porch and look, it looks to me like a larger porch. You look to the right, leading to the side of the house, and that original concrete pad is much bigger. It goes all the way to the bottom of that, the door frame. And now it's not nearly that size. And I would say that the concrete pad, a part of that old concrete pad is still visible today before those steps. And that's approximately 10 feet from the front of the door.
I don't believe the photograph demonstrates that convincingly. Let me ask a question of the staff. Looking at the site plan, the porch extends in a line such that if the porch were expanded, not the depth were not increased, but its width were increased, it would still be in the non-conforming section, but it would not add to the non-conformity.
That's correct.
You know what
They
I'm
could
trying to say here?
expand to
If you look
the
at the plot plan,
north, if they would like to.
if the
as
porch
long
were
as they-
extended along the house, looking at the front of the house to the left, it would still be in a non-conforming zone, but it would not be increasing the non-conformity, and a variance would not be required. Is that correct?
That is correct, as long as they maintain the current setback of 22.73.
Right, so the porch could be extended in that direction, northerly, almost as far as you want, without change, without a variance. Is that correct?
Like I said, it would have to be at the 22.73 setback
Right,
distance
well,
that's
the
established.
closest
and they
point
could
is
go-
now 22.73, and that is the, I would say, the southwest corner of the porch, if I can use that term.
And it could expand to the north.
Extending
keeping
it
that-
to the north would not change and would not require a variance. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would require them to go before the Historic Preservation Commission, though.
If I may, it creates two other problems. So one is structurally, it doesn't work aesthetically and structurally. There's no way to tie it in to the existing roofs that are there. That's problematic. We did look at that as an option. The second thing is it doesn't solve but half the problem. So more width would handle more people, but it's still too shallow to be comfortable. It's the depth that's as big an issue as the width. So to get people out there to be able to use it and function out there, it needs to be deeper.
The current 6 feet is not adequate. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we'd like 8-ish. And if you look at the front elevation of the proposed house, the proposed changes, and you look at how that A-frame was figured into the main gable of the house as it was existing, and then the shed was added at some time, that's where you get into a problem aesthetically.
I think that should be noted in the proposal to outline your hardships.
Okay?
Right now, the board has several choices before us, And we're still in the public hearing. And before we close it out, though, I wanted to remind the board that the options before us are to approve the variance with conditions, deny the application, and we can also continue the meeting for a determination based on more information. I'm hearing that there may be the possibility that a continuance asking for more information may be where we're headed. Before we close the public hearing, I'd like to know if anyone on the board has any more questions for our witnesses, such that that cure is not required. And some folks may feel like they're ready to make a vote now, which is fine. I just want to make sure that we make the use of our witnesses' time before we close out. Hearing no more discussions or questions for our witnesses, I'm going to ask if anyone on the board would like to move to close the public hearing and re-enter the Board of Adjustment meeting.
Hang on a second.
Okay,
If you're considering continuing, you don't need to close the public hearing.
okay, thank you.
Say that again.
Board, I leave it to you. Do you feel as though you have the information before you such that you can either approve or deny this petition? Or do you want to have the opportunity to gather more evidence, have the evidence arranged in a different way so that you can reach a more informed opinion? Let's have discussion on that.
Really, just to touch on why you don't need to close the public hearing. When you're in an open public hearing, you keep on taking in new information, taking in new evidence, but when you close it, you can't take in any more evidence. So if you're going to consider continuing it, that's why you don't close it, so you can take in future evidence at a later date and time in place.
Gotcha, thank you.
So the current setbacks are based on the current PDO and guidelines, right? How many properties in the village are non-conforming with those current regulations?
Within the historic district?
Yeah.
I can't answer that question.
Right.
I doubt that the staff could answer that question exactly either.
Not with any certainty, but subjectively, there's.
This
a
isn't the
few.
only one.
There's not, this is not the only one.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know. In that sense, you take each lot individually. Although it's a trend that's common to every single lot, it is unique to this lot as well. I think the distinction, there's a difference between 4 feet and 16 inches. I do feel like we've cleared up some of that it is going to be 16 inches and not 4 feet. A discrepancy that I have, if we're going based off of Exhibit J and Exhibit K, Exhibit J is the existing floor plan, Exhibit K is the picture. To me, those are identical. The porch that's showing up on J and what's showing up in that picture are identical. So I don't agree with the hardship being that we're trying to return this porch to what it was. Based off of what I'm seeing, I feel like it is where it has been. That's not saying that I don't think there's some hardship in not being able to enjoy your property and being able to, build what you want on your property. If the home was built today, you wouldn't build it in the setbacks and you could do what you want. I would like a little bit more clarity, if possible, just a little more definition in where the lines are actually going to be. I can't, I can't determine that based off of looking at everything. I know we've accepted the testimony from the builder here to say that's what it's going to be to cure that, but yeah, I'd just like a little more specificity if possible.
To vote on it today, I would have to decline it based on the evidence that was presented to us today. So I don't know if it comes into play or not.
Cindy, are you suggesting that, I heard you say earlier in the meeting today, that you feel like you would benefit by having a dimensional drawing of the existing porch and the proposed porch?
And the along with the setback amounts, yes.
Right. Okay.
So if the applicant is willing to provide more information, then I think that would be great. If they would like for us to make a decision today based on the evidence that they've presented to us today, I don't feel like there's enough hardship to grant the variance, just from what was presented.
Mr. Tanner?
I was just going to say, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask if you were amenable to having us continue this hearing with the idea that you would amend your application to present the information that the board's requesting.
Sure, unless Dan is able to explain that now. I'm not sure he's able to offer that. And I would say that looking at a photograph, a current photograph of the porch might, because there's not a close-up that I've been shown, what might be beneficial to you guys as well to see that's not the same porch as it used to be. The current porch compared to the porch that I think was original to the home. But we're able to continue whatever it takes for 16 inches. So I don't know if Dan can answer your questions right now. We're hoping to start a remodel soon, and but we're willing to do whatever it takes.
Okay, thank you.
It is just 16 inches. I understand that. But there are larger implications in variances in the historic district and what it could mean for future development and future changes in the area. So we're keeping that in consideration as well. But yeah, right now, I think I just need a little bit more specificity.
And I agree, we need more specificity, but I'm not convinced that it's going to change the degree of hardship relative on this property that it has, considering the entire district and on neighboring properties, whether they have similar hardships.
Are there
Is there anything that I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Cindy?
Are there other photos of this home to show you what it looked like in the past? Or you say you want to return it to make it historically correct. Do you have documentation that specifies what it was historically?
So my understanding is the planning department at some point burnt down. We have nothing I wish we had plans we could provide, wish we had other photographs we could provide, but that's the only thing that survived from the plans and photos is that photograph that at the Tufts Archives. I wish we could provide more. And I know that 65 Cherokee Road also had a similar issue. So maybe that's a good case to reference as well, that a variance was granted based on just old photographs and imposing on the setback.
So this is the only photograph that you have of what that is historically correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the only thing that was found. That's the only thing that my understanding survived.
And that's the fundamental reason for the hardship, is that correct?
I would believe so. I think if you really study closer the photograph from there, it's a much deeper porch. There still looks like a pad left over currently in front of the porch now, but that porch, the current porch has been dumbed down. It's 6 inches below the door frame now, and you look in that photograph, it's right up to the door frame. It's a much bigger concrete pad. And looking to the right of that little boy, there's several feet going from one inward from the steps and then all the way to the edge of the house. So I think for me, it shows but that porch was much bigger originally. And I know that you can't really see it in a far away shot of the house currently, but if you look closer, I think that's pretty evident. And I wish we had more photographs to provide. We don't. And I think Dan also points out we'd like to have an overhang with fans and to be able to sit out there and enjoy the neighborhood out there and have a little bit of breathing room from the railing. And I think that old photograph shows that's what it used to be. And I think it used to be at least 10 feet out, but that's my opinion. And you know, in my field and as being a detective, you got to use whatever you can evidentiary wise, and that's all we have.
Thank you. Philip, was there anything that you wanted to contribute?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay, thank you. Turning back to the board then, at this time, is there a motion before us? Okay.
It appears that the applicant is, would like a decision this evening, is that correct?
No, I would rather, if you need more information, I'd rather you have all the information that you need. I don't know if Dan can provide what you need now, but if not, I'd rather be tabled and get you the information that is necessary to make a more informed decision.
Does that mean the applicant is requesting a continuance to provide additional evidence and information?
If it's something that Dan can't provide right now, I don't know if he can provide what is necessary right now.
I can't, Jason. We're going to have to provide more drawings.
Okay.
If there's any way to know more about what 65 Cherokee, is that the property that he is, what address is he
Yeah,
referencing?
65 Cherokee Road.
I don't know anything about that. If no way to.
I'd be concerned about using a precedent on a different property because
I-
each property is individually analyzed, I believe.
Thank you. I'll echo that for Jack. The way the Board of Adjustment works with the variances, there
Specific.
is not a precedent created by a decision made for another property. Each property is unique and considered on its own. That said, echoing what I heard Cindy and David say, I'm of the opinion that I would benefit by seeing amended drawings. I've also heard conversation about the pad being different now than it was then. Perhaps there are other photographs that could be presented that would illuminate that further for us. I personally feel that I would benefit by more information before making a decision on whether or not what the request is that's before us. I have some confusion about it.
I agree with that.
All right, at this time then, I'm going to ask the board if there's a motion on the table.
I make a motion. to
Julie, I
continue
want to
the-
interrupt and give you guys some possible dates, because we have a set a date, time, and place. If everybody could get their calendars out. There's a couple options on the table. Dan, do you think you would have enough time to do something on March 11th at 4 p.m.?
Yes.
Get enough information back to us by then?
Yes.
All right, let me poll the board. March 11th at 4 p.m. is on the table as a possible date to continue, if that's the decision of the board. If anyone has a problem with that date and time, would they please indicate it?
I can make that work.
Okay.
All right, that seems to work for everyone. Philip, if you want to add that to the motion that I think you were time to make there?
Julia,
I make a motion that we continue the meeting till March 11th at, assuming 4 PM, to allow the applicant to collect additional information on the dimensions of the concrete pad.
Okay, motion is before us, made by Philip, to continue to allow the applicant time to amend the application for the variance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Jack? Yep, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, at this time then, we are going to continue this hearing until March 11th at 4 PM, when we will reconvene to consider the additional evidence before us. All right, so at this time then, I'm going to ask if there's a motion to close this public hearing and re-enter our regular Board of Adjustment hearing.
I don't believe that we're closing the public hearing. I believe we're just recessing.
Oh, correct. Thank you, Jack. Correct, thank you. We'll leave the, you're correct. We'll leave the hearing open. Thank you.
Thank you. See you at March 11th.
March 11th, 4
Okay.
PM.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing us today.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that Kelly then, over there? Shall we go into Alex? Should we recess before the PNC reconvenes?
Yes.
We need to recess and give IT time to stop this recording and start the next one.
Okay, thank you.
5 minutes. So we'll be back, just say 5 till 6.
5 minutes till 6?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, Thank you.
5:55. Thanks.